Welcome everyone to Footy Fanatics episode 9, where we debate the big six teams every week, 9 o'clock on a Sunday. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to the channel. Give us a like and a share. We'll bring you fans from each club of the big six. We're talking Arsenal, we're talking Tottenham, we're talking Chelsea, Manchester United, Manchester City, and Liverpool every Sunday, 9 o'clock. Make sure you check us out on Instagram and Twitter as well. Footy Fanatics, the place to be to get your football fix for 1 hour every Sunday. Everything you need to know about the Big Six in one episode. So I'm going to introduce you to the guests on today's panel. We've got Arsenal's very finest Hash. Hope you're doing well, mate. And big up to Arsenal for getting the 3 points today, getting the job done, keeping that title race lead. 8 points now. He's smiling. Nearly there, Hash. We've got VJ, our Chelsea resident pundit there, scratching his head over that draw. Really difficult for Chelsea that was to see them drop points because everyone expected them to win. Probably smashed a lot of accumulators at the park. We've got Gorav here, sitting in Old Trafford with all the trophies there on display behind him. He's probably going to add another couple the way Man United are going. I'm representing Tottenham as always, and it's been a painful Saturday for me. Really was a difficult Saturday evening. And then Conte came out and just blew the whole thing apart, which was great to see. Great entertainment. We've got the Salty Sultan, who Liverpool didn't play this weekend, but he'll be coming on later on to give us his thoughts on Liverpool and obviously that exit in the Champions League. And Ricky, our Man City fan, has got some questions for us. G's got some questions from Ricky there. Ricky normally represents Man City for us. He's not on today, but we'll be talking Manchester City. Now, the running order for today's show is going to be Arsenal and Manchester City, the title race. We need to talk about that and where that's heading. Have Arsenal now run away with it? We will get Hash's views, we'll get the pundits' views, VJ and G's views, myself. Then we will move on to Chelsea's draw at to Stamford Bridge. I mean, at home. That was a draw at home against a very weak Everton side. No one expected Everton to come back into that game, but they did. We'll get VJ's thoughts on that. And if Potter still deserves to be there till the end of the season, that's the big question on Chelsea fans' lips at the moment. You get him out now and get someone in. Is it better just not to have Potter at the club at the moment, the way things are going? Gorav, we will be getting your views on Man United, mate, and the top four race, obviously, that you're well and truly in. The trophy campaign could be trophy number 2. They have a treble literally to fight for now. So Man United have a lot to fight for, and pack that cabinet with trophies, which has been lacking over the last few years. So Man United doing some serious stuff, and it's all about silverware for Man United at the moment. And Tottenham, of course, if you haven't seen Conte's interview on Sky Sports, he absolutely destroyed the players. Never seen anything like it. And he destroyed the owner as well. And he's basically, I think, asking to be sacked. I think he wants to go back to Italy, and he's done with Tottenham Hotspur by the looks of it. Or it's the most craziest reverse psychology tactics I've ever seen from a manager, to go against the board and the players and still expect to be there after the international break. Liverpool didn't play, but we will get into them, and we'll get into Man City's 6-0 demolition of Vincent Kompany's Burnley that came to town, and everyone expected a tough game, but Haaland is just on something else at the moment. Erling Haaland just smashing apart Burnley, smashing apart RB Leipzig in midweek as well. And Man City do look back to their best. And the whole question about Haaland and can he play in that team, that seems to have disappeared for now with the amount of goals he's banging in. But let's get started with the show. We're going to do 15 minutes on each team. We're going to analyze the team. We're going to get your insight. Hash, to start with, the Arsenal win at home to Crystal Palace, mate, 4-1. Listen, was that just a big middle finger to the rest of the haters and the rivals? Because every week you get the media jumping on Arsenal saying they're going to collapse. Crystal Palace came to town without a manager, which is dangerous, because you might have probably wanted Patrick Vieira there because, you're just expecting that poor form to continue. But Arsenal destroyed them in the first half. Honestly, in terms of first halves this season, that was just demolition. Their XG was something like 0.06. Like, I don't think I've seen anything like that. 0.0. That's how bad Crystal Palace were in the first half. But I hand the mic over to you, and then we'll open up the panel's questions as well and debate. Talk us through that game and tell us sort of, how easy was that, mate? Was that just bread and butter for you, wasn't it? It didn't seem too hard. It was easy work.
Well, it was easy work, but obviously I'm going to be honest with you, the first 5 minutes, well, couple 10, 15 minutes, I was a bit nervous because you see that chance for Zaha, it hit the post and rebounded for Ramsdale, went back for a corner. So we did get a bit lucky there, but like I said, we responded. We scored 2 goals in the first half, and then we finished it off in the second half. But great goal from Martinelli, Saka, and obviously Xhaka as well. So it was a brilliant display from the team, and and we keep on winning. We keep on winning. So and we, like I said, Trossard, we played Trossard up front, Gabriel Martinelli on the left, and Saka what he usually does best. And obviously, I want to give a stand-up performance to especially Ben White. Wicked performance, like those overlapping runs, that assist he made for Saka. They must have practiced that in the training ground, 100%, because that was a different movement. Oh, I loved it, man. But we'll keep on winning, man. I'm very happy, man. I'm just look forward to the next game.
Yep. Nice one, Ash. VJ, man, any questions for Hash? I mean, do you guys see Arsenal slipping up? I mean, I know a lot of you guys have said it's a matter of time before the squad runs out of depth, injuries start piling up. We've seen Saliba obviously sit this out with a back issue. Looks like he'll be back after the international break, so no major concerns there. But they've got Jesus coming back as well. Trossard had a slight injury scare recently. Martinelli's back to his best. Xhaka scoring again. I mean, I'm looking at this team and they just look unbeatable. And I don't think, is this squad depth even a question now? And there is 30 points to play, so we've still got 10 games to go. But do you guys see this squad question? Is it just a bit of a cover-up job just to put Arsenal down, or is it a genuine reason they'll fail, man?
I think they played well, and I think if I look at Trossard, I think he's been a brilliant piece of business, right? Like last game before this, he did what, 3 assists, and he's got a really nice link-up play. He's got really good football intelligence. Even that pass for Xhaka, whereas Xhaka scored, outstanding. I thought Saka didn't blast it as well. If you watch that goal, it's such a cultured finish, right? And he plays really well. Ben White, is he a right back? I don't know, played really well. But then again, you're playing Crystal Palace, who couldn't buy a win, right? Like literally, if somebody gave them money and went out to go and get a win, they still couldn't get one. They'd come back with a draw. But this is the issue. I think you've beaten a team. You can only beat what's in front of you. You've actually smashed them. Like if you look on the stats, Arteta's not mucking about when he went. And he's probably told them, look, Crystal Palace could be a real bogey, but this could be the game that you go and win the championship on, and essentially these are the games you've got to win. I think going into the Liverpool game, you'll be confident, right? Like at that point it could be signed, sealed, and delivered. Once you pass that moment, I don't think squad depth matters now. I think it did about 5 games ago, VJ. I'll be honest with you. If they caught any injuries, I think you're in the final straight. It's just a matter of can you hold your nerve enough to win it, because that's what it'll come down to. Martinelli was electric. He was just, again, different level, different class. And you do play really well. And if you look at the awards as well, Arteta won it, Ramsdale won it, Saka won it, Odegaard won it. That tells you that this is an Arsenal team that's, through the whole line playing really, really well. So, no, I think you've got enough to win it.
Quick one, G. Just what you mentioned. Saliba was out as well, and we had Rob Holding in defence. And like I said, we didn't even miss Saliba today. To be honest, we didn't miss him. Rob Holding did the job today. So we are answering to every single question. Everyone's saying the squad depth. Like I said, our main man Saliba, he was out. Rob Holding came on and did the business, man. I don't know, man. I'm just really happy about it. I don't understand. I don't know. Got 10 games to go, but
Jinx it.
Yeah. I think we could do it, man. But like I said, the Anfield's a big one. Anfield's the big one.
Anfield's the one. Anfield's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of them, isn't it?
20 mil for Trossard. Come on. We need to put some more praise in his name.
Bargain, innit?
He's not. No one's talking about Trossard.
He could have gone to Spurs, couldn't he, Josh?
Sounds like a dodgy fish, isn't it? I'll have a Trossard. You know what I mean? It just doesn't sound like a footballer, but what a player, man!
Josh,
what a player.
Going back just to Europa League, yeah. Martinelli missed that penalty. Trossard missed that 1v1. But look how they responded today. That's a big.
The only thing, Hash, I would say is Sporting showed up some weaknesses in that Arsenal backline over those 120. They had chances, they had one-on-ones, they had set pieces. I just think if I'm Arsenal watching that, I'm thinking, okay, like to G's point, Newcastle lost 4 out of 5 or whatever it is. Shocking run, right? They're in the bottom 3-4 in the form table. Sporting is a proper unit, a proper gelled unit. So I think Sporting showed at the Emirates some of Arsenal's frailties, some of the weaknesses, and that was the worry, wasn't it? Is really Sporting could have won that 2-1. That one-on-one where Ramsdale saves it with his face. You had the flicked on header, if you remember that one, the Sporting guy just over the bar. And then, yeah, to your point, in extra time and just before it ended, Trossard had a one-on-one, which the keeper made a worldie, and then there was a Gabriel save as well. But Sporting gave you a real game, and I think today is just a points-based win. You know, performance. You didn't have to be in fifth gear. It was Crystal Palace, so you can't get too excited. And I understand what you're saying, why you're not getting too excited.
Josh, but also I want to add to that is Crystal Palace, they don't concede a lot of goals. They don't. If you look at the last 7 games, they don't really concede a lot of goals in the Premier League. Like even against City, they just scored and you won against them. There was a penalty, and we just obliterated them. We scored 4 goals against them. So
yeah, I agree, man. I think your attack's the best attack in the league. You take Haaland out of City, and suddenly where the goal's coming from, I mean, you take Trossard out, someone else scores. You take Martinelli out, someone, and this is the thing that Arsenal have. They have, I think, Saka's hit 20 goals and how many assists? I was hearing on the radio earlier, like something.
Double
yeah,
figures.
like he scored the most assists and goals since Fabregas, something like that. Yes, old stat. Martinelli's back. I mean, literally, you are literally like Man City of old. The way I look at Arsenal at the moment, it's like Arteta's cloned the DNA of Pep, injected himself with it, and turned Arsenal into the old Man City, man. Literally.
Just hopefully we can do it in
VJ,
Europe.
yeah, VJ, are you turning towards the Arsenal title now? Because we've all kind of been 70% City, 75 City. I think all of us could say that over the last few weeks. But now they're out of Europe. There's no midweek games. It's just every 7 days, nice rest. They could take a couple of days off, turn up on Tuesday, and they've got a lovely, 4 days to plan for every game now. Nice Saturday kickoffs. None of this Sunday crap. Do you think that squad argument goes out the window now because weekly rest?
Yeah, well, I think every week they're getting closer and closer, aren't they? And every week we sort of think, okay, maybe this is the week they'll slip up, and they're not. And to Ash's point, they're absolutely obliterated Crystal Palace, which I think was expected. Definitely. But yeah, I mean, the squad depth issue does go out the window a little bit, like you say. You know, they've got a lot of time between games now to rest themselves. I agree with the fact that all the players are playing well. I think, you know, when the team is performing like they are, honestly, I think if any one of us jumped into the team, we'd probably end up scoring 20 goals a season as well. They're just so high on spirit at the moment. And you can liken it a little bit to the Liverpool team of a few seasons ago. Look at Mo Salah, look at where he is this season compared to what he was doing in the last couple of seasons. When the whole team's down, the whole team's down. But when the whole team's up, everybody's chipping in with goals and assists and all sorts of stuff. I'd like to have said, I think you said Saliba was out and Rob Holding comes in, right? And he does a good job. He does, you know, plays his part. And you know, he wouldn't probably be first team pick, would he? On the team sheet at least. So yeah, it's good.
First time.
Exactly. Yeah. So clearly there's a spirit about Arsenal, a good spirit about Arsenal, where on and off the pitch they're high on it. Seems like they focus on the Premier League, though, doesn't it? Though, I mean, that being said, I mean, if you take, and I'm referencing Liverpool again of seasons ago, you know, they've won domestic cups, you know, they won the FA Cup, Carabao Cup, you know, Premier League, Champions League, you know, they never gave up on it. They were in all competitions right until the end, and even with United this season, they're the same, aren't they? You know, they're Carabao Cup in the bag, they're still in the FA Cup. And they're still in the Europa League as well. So yeah, I mean, it's all or nothing for Arsenal now, isn't it? But you know, every week they're getting closer, so you can't blame them. So, but the next couple of weeks will tell us a lot.
Yep.
Do you see any sort of banana skins here, Hash? Yeah. In terms of like Leeds had a great result, and on their day they can play and they can score. Liverpool, we know, depends which one turns up, the one that trounced us, or you know, the one that gets trounced.
I think for me, there's 3 stops, that I think is going to be a hard. You know, so you got Anfield, Liverpool, Etihad, Man City, and just Newcastle away. Those are the 3 main.
You're not even counting Chelsea.
Okay. So we got good record against Chelsea.
Just walk past VJ without saying anything there.
We got good record against Chelsea.
Smash me straight in the head and walk past, yeah. Yeah, I'll give you the 3 points there, to be honest.
Lads, I think look, Palace at home, 3 points, man. Come on, let's be honest. There's no one expected a freak result, but I think this international break is probably not good for Arsenal because you just want to keep this momentum going. And this is what I want to ask you, Hash. You're not going to have 2 weeks without any Premier League football. Everyone's talking about Arsenal's favourites now. Let's be honest. Even the anti-Arsenal guys are now saying it's yours to lose, right? And you might say game at a time, and Arteta says, and it's like you've all been told. It's like you've all been sent an email saying, anyone asks you anything, just say game at a time.
Game at a
How many
time.
sugars you having? How many sugars you want with your tea? Hash game at a time. You're going gym game at a time. It's literally the first line that comes out of every Arsenal fan's mouth is it's game at a time. But what I'm thinking is you've got 2 weeks off now, and I just wonder if the Chelseas, the Liverpools, the Cities, who you're about to play, Brighton, have that 2 weeks to get ready and prepare, get some injured players back. Potter can get back to his work. You know, Pep's going to be getting ready for you to welcome you at the Emirates. Do you think this break's going to be good for you? Because it's almost like anything you walk into now in the Premier League, you're just demolishing, man. Do you think this break's going to be good for you? Get some injured players back?
Yeah, I think the break him at a good time because one, you got Alexa Saliba's injured, Eddie Nketiah, he's a bit injured, and just the players need a bit of rest because we played a lot of games. Like you got the Europa League fixture we had last week and this week as well. So I think 1 week's rest we deserve it because we need it for the players. So yeah, I think so. It's good for us, and plus we're gonna go play Leeds at home, so it's perfect for us. Come back at home game. If it was Liverpool, then I'd be a bit worried. That it kills that momentum. Then we can go to Leeds. They'll come to us. We'll beat them hopefully, and then the big one, Anfield.
Is that you've been a Man United fan obviously all your life. You know what it's like to get to the last 10 games. VJ, you know what it's like to get to. I'm probably the only bloody sore thumb out here that hasn't won a Premier League. You guys know when it gets down to the last 10 games, there's a mental pressure that overrides any physical pressure because you've got space between games now. Most of the major competitions are out the way. As United fans, as Chelsea fans, it's squeaky bum time. And do you think that is something these Arsenal players might suffer from because there's only a couple in there that have done it?
I think everything that I see from Arsenal now, they look like they've got their bit between their teeth. I think Arteta sort of, he's basically exemplifying what Arsenal need to do. He's like a little terrier on the touchline. He's going at them. He's telling them what it is. You see Shevchenko as well. I thought he had an amazing game today. I mean, Shevchenko was unplayable himself. But in terms of United, I remember that horrible moment when Aguero scored and Man City lifted the title. But we'd won our game against Sunderland, and we never screwed up, right? So that was the thing. Alex Ferguson always had that about him as well, right? It was we're going to make sure that we win the games that we need to win, and then it's up to the results of whatever other people do. So ultimately, it's in their hands. They want to keep it in their hands. They don't want to get to a position where Man City have to lose for them to win the title, or that they have to drop points. They want to keep it well within their range, and I think if they're boxing smart, they want to win against Leeds. They don't want to lose against Liverpool. They don't want to lose against Man City, and the title's theirs. And I think that's probably how, if I was realistic, that's how I think it's going to pan out. The thing is, the Man City that you see right now, with Haaland scoring for fun, like it's on a playground, if they'd started the season like that, I think they're probably ahead of Arsenal because in the way that they've got him playing right now, with Foden supplying assists, Grealish, behind Silva, even the way that they've now got Alvarez tucked in just behind in that false number 10, they've got him really sort of buzzing, and you can see that on the form table as well. There's not much in it, last 5 games, 5 wins for Arsenal, 4 wins and a draw for City. And they smashed everybody in the Champions League, right? That wasn't even a game. That was just my highlights were 12 minutes, and it's just Haaland scoring. So it was crazy. So in answer to your question, I think Arsenal are going to do it. I think Arsenal will do it.
To your point, to your point, G. If Haaland gets injured, then City are in trouble. The kind of whole thing swings Arsenal's way a little bit more with Haaland out because he's got those headers, he's got an array of goals, hasn't he? He can do it all. He can dribble. He can shoot from. He's got a bit of everything. I haven't seen him banging a 30-yarder yet, but I'm sure he can do it. He's more of a fox in the box at the moment. VJ, squeaky bum time, man. What do you reckon in regards to that question?
Yeah. No, I think I agree with Jesus' assessment on it. Yeah, this is the business end of it, isn't it? I mean, it's just like the game of football, right? You know, getting to the final third is probably the simple bit, but it's when you get to the final third and have to score that goal, you have to make decisions, and that's where you typically end up screwing up more times than you don't. So yeah, I think City, you know, teams like City, Man United, Chelsea, they've been there. Liverpool, they've been there and done that. So I think if City were a little bit closer to them, I'd say yeah, definitely City are there. But it'd be interesting to see Arsenal's mentality. I mean, this is it, right? This is what's going to tell us where they're at. Um, if I think if Arsenal do draw another game and let City back in, I think that's where you probably see a little bit of Arsenal crumbling. But if they carry on going like they are now, smashing teams, just taking them down, then yeah, I don't even think that's going to come into it. They're just going to lift the title, and that'll be done for this season.
Hash, we see the fixtures of Manchester City. We'll focus on them for the next 5 minutes. They've got obviously Bayern Munich home
I've
and
seen it already.
away. You've seen it, right? You can see it on the screen here, guys. We can see that they're going to always be behind you now on points until they get to their double week where they catch up. So is it an advantage? Arsenal just keep winning, keep that 8-point lead, keep that 5-point lead, and then you just take it into the last 3 weeks of the Premier League. If Man City are into the semi-finals of the Champions League, I guess that's great news for you guys, isn't it, Arsenal? Because you want Man City to go as far as possible in this competition, and maybe pick up a couple of injuries. I know it's not nice to say that, but let's be honest. You know, if De Bruyne or Haaland or Diaz picks up an injury, you're not going to be crying about it. So it's all going to plan, isn't it, Hash? I mean, really, if you mess this one up with 8 points clear, I think this goes down as one of the biggest flops in Premier League history, mate. Because with the way things are looking right now, you cannot mess this up, mate.
Still,
I mean,
still 10 games to go. Still 10 games.
love it, mate. I love the seriousness and the professionalism, mate. Very Arteta-like. But look, looking at these Man City fixtures, lads. Any banana skins there, lads, that you can see? Let's take the Champions League out of it. I mean, listen, Liverpool at home's the next big one, isn't it? Really, I guess that's a banana skin.
Yeah, it is, and it depends which Liverpool turn up, and I always say that, right? Because if it's the one against Bournemouth, it's good night Vienna. City's winning that, but I think if it's the one that turned up against us, then that's going to be a hell of a game. I also think that these games now, Ricky said it, their big one that they want to win is the Champions League. But what makes them think that Bayern are going to be a pushover? I saw Bayern qualify and they qualified well, right? And they always do. And they were always in the last minutes. And when we won the Champions League, they were right there until the 93rd minute. They don't go away easily. So I think that's going to be a really interesting sort of matchup. And I genuinely think that there's a potential here that Haaland might be a bit of a bully boy when it comes to Burnley and RB Leipzig. I don't think he's doing the same to Bayern. And I think that's the difference that we're going to probably see. Whereas I think Arsenal can cut at will, when they're on full form. So if you kind of nullify Haaland, and I've always said how you do it, which is just drop back and you don't let him have that sort of extra run in, and you've got a strong centre back like Bayern have. Foden is who's really come along. Like that's the difference between what Man City are being able to do now. Before they were all just passing it square and nobody was doing anything. But now Foden's got that bit of acceleration, he's got that messy couple of touches and he gets into the box and finds a ball. And they're playing percentage balls, Josh. If you watch the games, they're playing percentage balls and they've got a really big guy who's more likely to get there than not. And I think that's what they're doing. Yet to see like sort of Cancelo, top of the corner, shots going in. That's not where City are scoring right now. There's lots of a box play, and I think these, and that's the thing. If they go to 0-0 against Bayern, and there's a few minutes left, I don't think Haaland's going out and scoring a hat trick against them. Like, I don't see that. I think there's going to be a professionalism, and it's going to be the business end of the season. I think Liverpool, if they can hold their defense, they can probably get a draw. If they can't hold their defense, they're going to be destroyed. And that's that's it. If they cut through that midfield, but Salah's not going to be able to recover what Haaland does to them because he's on the next planet right now. What's he? 42 goals? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, he's an alien. He's an alien, man. He's going to hit 50, and that's just ridiculous in 3/4 of the season, And Champions League, obviously, he's getting goals in the Champions League. It's just ridiculous. I think he's beaten Ronaldo and Messi in a single Champions League campaign in terms of goals already. The guy's smashing it. How do you beat Arsenal? Anyone can take that question. How are Arsenal going to be beaten? Is there a weakness in Arsenal's team? Tactically, is it a low block? Is it counter? Is it in their faces? Is it elbowing them? Is it getting down and dirty Sean Dyche football? Like, what is the way to beat Arsenal, guys? I mean, it's not an easy question to answer, but I mean, is there a way to beat them? Is there any weaknesses in this team?
You want to take that, VJ?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm trying, as you was asking the question, I'm trying to think when they were last beaten. I guess that tells you quite a lot as well, doesn't it? Um, I don't even know
Everton.
if you can be. Yeah, right, exactly, and that was because of, yeah, you could say a little bit of a new manager bounce, and I just think that they're a little bit like the Chelsea Mourinho teams for me. It was like you just can't beat them. You know, that one season we conceded 15 goals in their entire season. There just was not a way to get around that. And I'm not saying that Arsenal are giving me those sort of vibes, but they're just giving me that sort of feeling where, you know, before the ball's kicked, you know, they're scoring, and guess what? If you catch them asleep for 5 minutes, and you score a couple of goals, they're just going to wake up and
Bournemouth.
come at you again. Bournemouth, right? Exactly. Two goals down, and they've come back and they've scored. Okay, you could argue a little bit that Bournemouth's conceded quite a lot of goals. I actually don't know. I think you've just got to catch Arsenal a little bit sleepy, you know, a little bit off their game. And given that they've now got that rest period in between, potentially could be a good or a bad thing. You know, when we saw Liverpool play, and I spoke to a lot of Liverpool fans, and they were like, because we're playing 3 times a week, that momentum, we're always up there, we're always fully charged. And it was when we had the longer breaks that the problems started to kick in. So could that be a sort of weakness for Arsenal where they're not playing as often and they're only turning up on a Saturday, cold, and can you catch them out cold? But I think from a tactical perspective, I think Arteta has got it nailed. He seems to find solutions for everything on the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
think
have to agree with that.
every manager in the league is trying to work out how to beat this Arsenal team because no one can do it. No one can do it.
But I remember that team that VJ's talking about, right? You had John Terry, you had Carvalho, right? In the centre, no one's getting past them. You had Czech at the back. You know, that team with Makaleli and the whole bunch of people. That was just fear. People would like step out and they'd be like, right, we just want to get a draw today. If we can get a draw, it's an amazing result. And I think, you know, Arsenal are giving those vibes off as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just reading your titles, man. Potter's still in 3 cards on Mother's Day. Love it, mate. 3 cards, as in the red ones. Hash, come on, man. You have the secret recipe. You've got Mama's recipe. How'd you beat Arsenal, mate? You know how it all goes down there. Come on, tell everyone how we beat Arsenal, mate. We're not going to tell anyone. Pep ain't watching this. Klopp ain't watching this. I can tell you that. How'd you beat Arsenal, man? What's the weaknesses in that team?
Just a low block. You have to put a low block, and like I said, you keep Saka, Odegaard quiet. It's over. That's it. Everton
Really?
tried
No?
it.
Is it that simple? Because you said Xhaka and Odegaard, right? Because I imagine
No,
from Saka, right? Okay, yep. Saka. Okay.
It almost worked. If you think about it, if I was an Arsenal fan, if I looked at the Everton game, it worked. If you look at the Aston Villa game, it almost worked, and the Bournemouth it almost worked as well. So you can talk about those games, and if you go back for Leeds, they did the same thing, and we managed to win that game. We didn't deserve that win at all, but it almost worked. So, like I said, we do have some frailties, but it just right now the players are in form. So
I think the problem is you stop the right, the left performs. You stop the left, the middle performs. You know, you stop all of them and you get you score a set piece. You have every goal in the book. You have your DM scoring 25 yarders. You know, you have your defenders sticking in headers. You have everyone is contributing. Ben White, like someone mentioned, I think it was G mentioned it, overlapping, smashing in crosses. Tomiyasu's injured, I know now, so Ben White's gonna have to stick it out. Tierney doesn't get much game time, but he's a brilliant, quick player with a really good cross. Oh, you got the assist, yeah. So he's coming into it. So they are literally unbeatable, and that game against Man City is going to be El Clasico on steroids. You know, tiki taka on steroids, because you just wonder what Arsenal will do. Will they go to the Emirates and rock and roll in your face? Let's do this, or are they going to go to the Etihad? And do what they did in the cup game, in the FA Cup game, which is a little bit shaky. I mean, when you do go to the Emirates, do you want Arsenal to just forget who they're playing and just carry on with this attacking, flamboyant football, or do you want to see Arteta sort of stop City as well as playing the Arsenal way?
I just want us to go for it. The way we're playing, we should play the same way. We shouldn't give him some respect. We should just play the way we should play. Because when they came to the Emirates, you should see them. We had more possession in the first half, and I think that's the most possession we had against a team like City. City had the least amount of possession in that whole season against Arsenal. That's another stat for you there. If Ricky was here, then he would have known. But yeah. So we should do the same thing. Be on the front foot, passing from the wide angles, and try to break them down. But that game in the Emirates, man, if we don't just concede the goals and give like cheap passes away, I think we can do it. Like I said,
you can afford to draw.
And the good news, I guess, the good news, Ash, is that Man City's not going to put the low block in on Arsenal. They play a certain way, they're never going to change that. So.
Exactly. I prefer teams that don't do that. You just
exactly.
Yeah.
But I think with Arsenal, I think they share the goals around a little bit more than City at the moment, don't they? I mean, City from seasons ago, you had more players contributing to a goal contribution.
Yeah, we share the love.
Yeah, exactly. You got Trossard, right? Xhaka, Martinelli. You got your centre backs, chipping in now and again as well. Not to mention Saka, of course. But So if you nullify one, you got the other one there. So G sort of said if you nullify Haaland, Grealish, okay, chips in now and again, right? Foden as well, but they're not as prolific. And City are set up with Haaland attack, aren't they, at the moment?
Yep. Lads, let's close off now. So thank you, Hash, on Arsenal there. And we touched on Man City. And when Ricky's on, we'll get his thoughts on the next episode. I'm sure Ricky's sitting there thinking, right, 8 points. This is looking like a bit of a mountain now. But the good news is Man City have to play Arsenal at home. And that is big because that brings it down to 2 points, obviously, if they win their game in hand. And 2 points is nothing in the Premier League with even 5 or 3 or 4 or 5 games to go, So let's just hope it comes down for the neutral down to 2 points. So we've all got a nice end to the season. We don't want to see Arsenal run away with it with 3 games to go. We want to see it come down to the nail like Man United there. G mentioning Fergie and Rooney looking at the television screens at Sunderland and expecting to go on to win it. We want that kind of finish on Gillette Soccer Saturday at 6 o'clock on that Sunday. Yeah, probably. Yeah, hopefully it goes down to the wire, and I think Chelsea might have had a couple of close ones as well. Any don't come to mind at the moment. But let's switch our attention to, by public demand and pundit votes, to Tottenham now. We were going to talk about Chelsea, but the pundits don't want to talk about Chelsea just yet. They were saying before we went live, let's talk about Tottenham. Let's get into Tottenham Hotspur. Normally we leave them to the last or second last team of the night, but tonight we're going to go in second with Tottenham. So obviously, being a Spurs fan, let me give you my quick thoughts on the game. It was a really strange game. So anyone who watched this game, it had a lot of injuries in the first half. So I think Southampton had used all their 5 subs, if I'm not mistaken, by the 60th minute. Now, in the Premier League, you can only use the substitutions you can only use all your substitutions in 3 occasions. So you can't use all of them one by one because I don't want to time waste. So Southampton's hand was forced by using all 3 substitutions in the 60th minute or 65th minute because they had an injury to one player, but then they're thinking, what if a couple other tire? So they took their 3 substitutions. But the first half was all injuries, lots of change. Tottenham taking the lead with Pedro Porro, who's been a great player. Put him in your fantasy league. I put him in luckily before the game. Pedro Porro, great finish. Spurs played okay. It was very 50-50. I wouldn't say we dominated. I wouldn't say Southampton dominated. Foster pulled out some good saves. We obviously scored the goal. And then Southampton came back with a really good counter-attacking move. But I think the big questions coming out of that game is, for Tottenham fans, is when we went 3-1 up with about 20 minutes to go, Conte had a decision to make as to, do I just let these guys carry on doing what they're doing, or do I change it? And do I go a little bit more safer? And what he did with his subs is he went a bit safer. So he took off Pedro Porro, he took off Kulusevski. One had a goal and one had an assist. And he kind of just shored us up. He put Pape Sarr in the middle. He put Ollie Skip a bit to the right. So a lot of Tottenham fans have this view that Conte got it wrong and he went too defensive at 3-1 up. And he should have just let the boys get the 4th goal and then shut up shop. By going 3-1 up, you know you're one goal away from a comeback. 3-2 in the Premier League is everything to fight for. And that's exactly what happened. Southampton came back into it 3-2. We let them back in by going a bit compact. And a lot of players have been blamed after the performance by Conte for lacking spirit, for lacking teamwork, for lacking care and being selfish. And then in the end, unfortunately for Tottenham and VAR, I think it was a light penalty. It was a very, very, very faint touch from Pape Sarr. But it was a penalty on paper. It was a penalty because if he's touched him in the box and he's gone down, it's a penalty, I guess, in the rules of the game. Very harsh, though. Very harsh. If football's going to be a contact sport, there has to be some contact allowed. And you could argue Maitland Miles, the Arsenal player there, the ex-Arsenal player, kind of looked for it and went down. Pape Sarr didn't even know he was there. It wasn't intentional. So a very, very weak penalty decision for me. VAR got that one wrong. And then they went on to draw the game. And then after the game, Conte's come out and just ripped Spurs, the players, to shreds. He said the players lacked they were selfish. He used the word selfish. That wasn't paper talk. He used the word selfish. He's called out his players. And this is the question I want to ask you guys, the pundits, is you've all got managers that have come and gone at your clubs. You've all had managers that have fallen out with the board, whether it's a Mourinho, whether it's Tuchel at Chelsea recently, or whether it's Emery at Arsenal. There comes a point when publicly shaming players is a good or a bad thing. I can't think of many examples where a manager's publicly shamed his players and gone on to get big results and do well for the club. I think Fergie's one example where he's done it for years and it's worked, but not many do. Many keep their laundry dirty indoors. Conte decided to wash it in public. And secondly, listen, I get him having a go at the players because we've seen managers do that, right? So come out in the press and say the players were shit. And sometimes it works because it says to the players, I'm not embarrassed to call you out. I'm the boss over here. I'll say what I want to say. But what really surprised me was when he went on to diss Daniel Levy and the club, because they're his employers. He's on 15 million a year. He can't detach himself from the situation. He has been there for nearly 2 years now, 1.5 years. So he has something to do with that team and that performance. He spends 9 hours a day with them, 5 days a week, and traveling up and down the country with them across Europe and on match day. So you have to find a link between the players' performances and the coaching and the drilling sessions and everything Conte does at halftime and before the game. But my question to you guys is, to start this off, because it's quite a hot topic at the moment across football, is let's start with Hash, then VJ, then G. Hash, was Conte right or wrong to say that about his players in public? And any examples you can think of where it does work, coming out in public and saying it, the players are selfish or basically dissing the players, mate.
No, it's wrong. You should always back your players. Like Arteta did that from since day one. When the players are playing rubbish, he never used to say anything bad about the players. He's always had their backs. You can see from that Amazon documentary, like he said in the dressing room, they have to go to the press and back you guys up and stuff, all of that. So you have to back your team. If they play rubbish, you still back them up. I think Wenger did that a lot of times. Every time the press asked him about the questions about players, he kept just denied it. But what I think Conte wants to go, man. I think he wants to go back to Italy and just go down there. But that doesn't work nowadays, man. Because players are back in those days, like Fergie time, Wenger era. You can say something to the media about players. They could take it up. They could, they'll take the hit. But nowadays, players are weak. You know what I mean? They could just turn on you like that. It's not good for young players in the dressing room. People like Harry Kane in that dressing room going to be like, what's going on? And I don't know that much.
Can I just say, Harry Kane said after the Champions League exit, which was a really bad kind of knife in the chest, because it was the big competition that Tottenham were in. We lost to AC Milan last week in the Champions League, and Harry Kane came out, and I watched his interview about 3 times, and he mentioned the word desire a few times in that interview, and he said we lacked desire and hunger. And before that game, we lost to Sheffield United, if you guys remember, away in the FA Cup, 1-0, to a really half-baked Sheffield United team because I had a lot of injuries, and we put out the Richarlisons and Sons for that. Yes, we didn't put Kane out, but our team was good enough to beat them. After that, the manager Stellini, who was in place for Conte because he had his operation rest and everything, said the team lacked energy. And then yesterday, Conte said the team lacked well, they were selfish. They lacked spirit. So we got energy. We got that from Stellini. Harry Kane saying desire. Antonio Conte obviously saying they lacked team spirit. These all three things, one from the head player, the best player at the club, one from the assistant manager, and one from the manager himself. It kind of, to me, that says maybe the players are not. He's lost the dressing room potentially. VJ, do you think there's any truth in that? Do you think he has lost the dressing room, or is this a cultural issue at Tottenham, regardless of the manager there?
Well, yeah, I mean, just to address the comments, and we could spend hours on this, couldn't we? But he has actually come out and sort of half apologized that he wasn't talking about the owner and the board or anything, but he clearly referenced the owner, right? And that you hadn't won things for a number of years. So he has. But I think to your point and to what Hash said, you should never ever criticize your team, no matter how bad they are. And I think again to Hash's point about the documentary, Arteta went mad on the players in the dressing room, but he never did that in front of the cameras. And he actually said to the guys when he was absolutely, really like annoyed at the players, he said, "I'll take the blame as I do usually," and that's what Conte should have done. He should have done that. He should have ripped them in the dressing room, but then gone out and given, an interview. Because the problem is, on Monday morning when they come in, they're probably all cooled down and they'll be totally fine. But what the players are going to remember is you dissed us on Saturday evening, and I'm going to remember that, especially the young ones. So he shouldn't have done that. And I personally think this is the beginning of the end for him. And if he hasn't lost the dressing room before Saturday, I think he has now. So yeah, to answer your question, I think
Do
he
you
has lost
think,
the dressing room.
VJ, having supported Chelsea and so many managers come and go now, do you cast your mind back to a time when it has worked, or even any other club where you do publicly go and say the players are crap, and then there's been a turnaround? Because before you answer that question, cast your minds back if you can remember this, because I know you're not Tottenham fans, but we lost to Burnley last year, and Conte came out and said, "I don't think I'm right for this club." It was around January time. He said, "I don't think I'm right for this club. I don't think I'm right for the players, blah, blah, blah." And we went on our best run from February. We finished in the top four. So some would argue that by doing that, he got a reaction. Do you think it's possible he could get a reaction? Have you seen that work before?
I think Mourinho he did little bits of this at Chelsea. Certainly not in this fully blown method that Conte. Conte just basically put all his tables on the card and said, right, we're crap. We're Tottenham. This is the history of Tottenham. We ain't going to win anything, no matter what I try. So he's sort of detaching himself from the situation, but he is part of the situation. He's part of the club. He's employed by the club. It's his job to fix those issues you talk about, right? Energy, passion, desire, all of that. That's his job. He's got to instill that. And suddenly, if he goes out and another one comes in, and those three things are resolved, then what does that tell you? It's not the players, it's the manager. So, for me, I'm not sure it works. It may have worked in the Fergie era 20, 25 years ago. The culture of players was different. Now it's all about, well, if you talk to me like that, I'm talking to my agent and I'm out of here next week. Back in the Fergie days, we're talking about, your Beckhams and your Nevilles and all that. You never had that player power as much as it is right now. So the manager's also got to be different. So for me, Conte's the winner. He's the serial winner. He's done it wherever he's gone. And I think a lot of people, when he came into Spurs, thought, he's probably going to win something. And he's not winning now. And he's getting more and more frustrated.
Do you have any leaders in that Tottenham team? Don't you think there's any leaders that stand out?
It's a good question. Lloris is our captain and he's out injured, so he's not even around the dressing room at the moment. So I don't believe he's involved with the club in any way like that on match day. So maybe they're missing his voice. Harry Kane's quite quiet and he leads by example more than a vocal guy. Pierre Højbjerg's we call him the Viking, because he shouts and screams. But if you look at the goal, I can't remember what goal it was. Yeah, it was the second goal, the 3-2 Southampton, their second goal. He's too busy telling the ref it hit the hand, and behind him they've all just connected their passes, put a cross in, and scored 3-2. And he's still at the end of that. They're celebrating, the Southampton fans, the players, and he's still going to the ref. It was a handball. Listen, you play to the whistle. That's not his job. His job's not to tell the referee. That's VAR's job. He didn't run back. So bit of stupidity, I think leaders, but intelligent guys as well, like guys that command the respect of the players. I'm not sure we have many that command the respect of the players. So I think Kane, yes, they all realize Kane's special, But Kane is one of those players where I can't remember many times he's yelled and shouted at a player publicly. I can't remember him yelling at anyone. Hugo Lloris did yell at Sonny about a season and a half ago. I think it was Villa. Yeah, do you remember that? He proper went for him, and that was great to see because Sonny didn't track back and they had a chance which he saved. But no, to your question, there's not many. I mean, it's a bit of a mismatched team because you got a lot of new players as well with Porro. I mean, Eric Dyer. I'm going to talk about Eric Dyer because he's been there 8 years. Ben Davis, nice guy. Ben Davis, the perfect son-in-law kind of guy. Eric Dyer looks a bit angry, like a bit of a nutter, but I don't think he commands the respect because of the solo individual errors he makes himself. If you're not a good player, can you command the respect? Really, the Vieiras and Keanes and these guys, right, were great players in their positions and they were great personalities. If you're a great personality but not a great player, can you really command that respect? That's another question as well to this. So no, I think we are lacking leadership, mate. But I mean, the thing is, Conte is all fire, guts and glory. We see it on the touchline. He goes mental. Like you'd want to run through walls for a guy like that because he's so like fiery and he's got that Italian fire in him, and you just want to go out there and smash it for him. And I think if you just look at Conte himself on the touchline, he doesn't sit back. A lot of managers just sit back in, a goal goes in, they don't move, they don't show any expression. This man's on. I saw him on the whole game. I watched it. He's yelling at everyone. So the leadership was coming from Conte. They didn't need leadership. They lacked desire and hunger to run back, do the hard work in football, the dirty stuff, the second balls, taking an elbow, taking a shoulder barge, like busting your lungs out until you can't breathe no more, yelling at a teammate even though you think I don't want to piss him off. Because for those 95 minutes, if you guys don't work as a team, then it's just going to take a couple of weak players and you drop points. And that's what happened to us, like we let our guard down thinking we'd won it at 3-1. But G, coming to you, mate, what are your thoughts on all of this, man? You've heard us all speak about it and give us our views. I mean, what's your thoughts on this, man?
I think you guys are right. I think you don't do it in public because you get that shot once in a season. Like Ricky messaged as well just now while he's eating his restaurant meal. He basically just turned around and said, it worked for Pep and it's worked for Klopp. Historically, they get that one shot in the season where they just come out and don't individually go for players and they don't individually go for the club, but they'll go for the collective and say, look, that wasn't the Man City way or that wasn't the Liverpool way. That wasn't the United way. I'll give you the number one example, right? So Roy Keane scored in the Champions League semi-final against Juventus, and he put us through to the final against Bayern, right, in the Champions League. Fergie still got rid of him in, private. He basically turned round and he said to the club when they came into training at Carrington, Keane was your captain. He no longer plays for the club. You guys have 10 minutes to take this information in, then I want to see you on the pitch. Training. That was it. And Keane was gone. And Keane was such a massive part of, the success of what United were at that time. So sometimes it is guts and glory, but I think it's a time that's gone. And I know it sounds really weird, but that command and control sort of managerial mentality is lacking. You can see Mourinho not actually having a huge amount of success with it now. Even though he did before when he was pulling up Luke Shaw and saying the guy can't run back 25 yards out of position. And the irony is he can't run back 25 yards out of position, but he still plays for England, right? So there's all of these sort of things. Eric Dyer is probably, I think lots of people have said it, but he seems to have a spell over Spurs managers. I think it was you who said it. Everyone likes the Eric Dyer effect, yeah. And then suddenly you realise he's a 7 out of 10 at best. But then you can win championships with 7 out of 10 players, but they all have to be motivated. Look at Rob Holding coming into the Arsenal team, right? He's no indifferent to somebody like Callum Chambers was. They're not indifferent players, but the spirit at Arsenal is like you can put it into a winning team and you're going to have it. We had Park Ji-sung doing the same thing. We had Dennis Irwin doing the same thing. David May doing the same thing. These players weren't amazing talents, but the club was, solid on its foundational and base. And that comes down from the manager. Ten Hag's come into a team. He spent money, not saying he hasn't, but he's got a standard the players get, and he's doing it respectfully. And he took that 4-0 against Brentford on the chin. And he said, right, I'm going to go out and run that 13.5K that you guys didn't bother running. any of you are welcome to join me. So he embarrassed them by leading by example. I think the problem with Conte is he wants out. You know, his health is suffering. He doesn't want to be here. He probably wants to be back home in Italy, and that's all fine. Levy's got to make it happen for him. He's a serial winner. He doesn't want to have losing on his CV. Like all great managers, you know, he wants to win. And guess what? Wherever he goes next, he will again start that winning trail. I think if he goes to an Inter or Juventus or whatever, he'll win again. It's not Conte. It's just a club mix and the club fit, which isn't right now.
One thing with Conte, Gary Neville's pointed out, is he does these 2-3 years and then he falls out with the board wherever he goes. So with Chelsea, with Abramovich, with Inter, and now you could argue is the start of the end. That's to VJ's point with falling out with the Tottenham board, because you do not go against your employers like that. You're dealing with a, you're dealing with a football club here. You know, it's not your own little self-employed business, and you can't take matters into your own hands. But I think there comes a point when if you're fed up and it's just not working, you're kind of saying, I'm going down. I'm going to take you guys with me. Like, you know, I'm not going down on my own here. You know, I'm dealing with a bunch of losers here. I'm going to say it how it is. You can sack me. It's not about money for him now, right? I'm happy to be sacked on my morals and principles rather than be the puppet guy that comes here and says everything's great and just we do a little deal in the office at the end of the season. You have to rate Conte for showing something that many managers don't have balls to do, which is come out to the world and say exactly how they feel. And I think that interview, when you read the comments below it, whichever YouTube channel you've gone, most people are backing Conte, saying it's refreshing to hear a manager throw the players under a bus in public, because these well-paid guys are not bothered about the fans as much as maybe we think they are, and giving that 100%. Top four is a trophy for Tottenham, and that's all it is. They don't care about Sheffield United away and pulling a result out. They maybe don't want to go deep into a competition because they know it's more on their bodies and midweek games, and it just gets harder, the mental pressure. They just want to go to the Bernabéus and the AC Milans of this world and play a nice fancy game, and that's it. They're done, pick up their wages and go home. So I do rate Conte for coming out and putting the players in their places, but I also agree with you guys on the point that if you're going to do it publicly, you risk a massive revolt from the dressing room. And I think the next couple of games, which is Everton away and Brighton at home, will tell us if the dressing room are still with Conte, if he's still in a job in 2 weeks. Because if they fight for him, then people will argue it's the best thing he did. And, it was very revolutionary. But obviously, if we lose those games, I think people will point to this interview and say, he's lost the dressing room, get him out of there. And Tottenham is still in fourth. Now, let's close off on Spurs, lads. Let's talk about another team which dropped points on the weekend. And I couldn't believe it because I wasn't watching the game live, but I was keeping an eye on it on my phone. And it went 2-1. And I thought this is just a matter of time before Chelsea see this out. It's only Everton. But I'll hand over the mic to VJ, our Chelsea resident fan in the house. VJ, what went wrong in the end there, mate? I mean, are you doing a Conte blaming the players, or are you saying, no, Potter got that one wrong?
Yeah, I'm actually going to say Potter got that one wrong because we've actually been playing pretty okay. And I know we've had 3 sort of good results on the bounce. And Everton was just expected at home. Energy level were high. You felt that the win was coming. We started the game off quite well. Should have scored probably before the goal went in, but João Felix eventually did get his goal. This time it was slightly lucky it went in. And we thought that's it. It's going to be a nice easy afternoon sitting there watching it with my dad, my son. And it was all great. And then they they go and equalise and get a goal out of basically a set piece. They get the first corner, which goes for a second corner, and then they get that one in, and then you're thinking, oh, here we go again. Well, okay, we get the penalty. The penalty goes, obviously, scores, it goes in, and you think, okay, you've got 10, 15 minutes to go now. We can see this out. This is Everton, right? Another one on the another win on the sheet, build confidence, move on, and kick on from there, right? And then Koulibaly just gets absolutely bullied off the ball. I mean, it was just like a little kid, like a 16, 17-year-old playing against him. He just, Sims comes in and scores, and then you're hearing all of these things like, first goal, Premier League, and you're thinking, what, it seems like, everyone comes to Stamford Bridge and breaking records. Haven't scored for 100 years, and suddenly they turn up to Stamford Bridge and they're getting their first goal. It was terrible because I think the substitutions that Potter made at 2-1 were just defensive, and it was happy to take the 2-1 and shut up shop. And there doesn't seem to be, he just wanted that another win, right? And sort of say, right, we won that game, guys. Well done, lads. Let's move on to the next one. But we didn't. We ended up conceding in the last minute, or a couple of minutes to go, and it just felt laboured again. And we have spells where we play well, and you think, okay, is this the new Chelsea? And it's not. Obviously, with Chilwell and Reece James coming back, they're bombing forward, three at the back. That gives some sort of stability, and we can go forward. Havertz playing that sort of false nine seems to be working well at times. But I mean, the only positives were Fernandes. Again, he's settled in quite well, and drawing parallels to the Arsenal game, right? You could plonk anybody into that team. We're talking about Trossard, 20 million. What a great bit of business. Had Mudryk gone the other way and Trossard had come to Chelsea, I think we'd be having the other way. We should have gone for Mudryk. He was a class player, Trossard. Because I don't think Trossard functions in the Chelsea team right now. So, it's the complete reverse of what's happening at Arsenal. So, yeah, to answer your question, I do blame the manager. I just don't think he's found his best team. And I know you could argue, well, with the amount of players he's got, what is the best team? It's going to take time to get to know that team. So yeah, no, I don't see the style of play developing. I don't see the Potter style, or Potter ball, if you like, coming through. It's not, it's no different to what Conte played at Chelsea when he went three at the back. So yeah, I mean, disappointing afternoon to concede that late. Should have been a routine win for us. Would have built confidence. Would have been, are we breaking out of it? But no, we're back to square one.
Just on those subs, VJ, before I hand over to G, just on those subs, mate. So I can see here Loftus-Cheek coming in for Kovacic on the 81st minute. You've gone 2-1 up at this point through the Havertz penalty. And then Chukwuemeka, however you say his name, coming in for Felix on the 86th minute. And then literally a minute after that, Chalobah coming in for Fofana on the 87th minute. And then on the 89th minute, they score. So just to Potter's defense here, he's brought on two defenders. So he's brought on Chalobah for Fofana, and he's brought on Chukwuemeka for Felix. So he's sacrificed an attacker for a more defensive-minded player. He's brought on Loftus-Cheek, who's got obviously legs over Kovacic. Really, is it being a bit harsh to? I mean, he's 2-1 up with 5 minutes to go, 6 minutes to go. I don't know what it was. 87, 86 minute. Are we being a bit harsh? Because what most managers do that anyways, you get to that 88th minute and you say, right, I'm going to sacrifice a couple of my flair players and just expect a couple of waves from Everton now, set piece, Sean Dyche. We're going to bring in some big soldiers at the back and just see out this last attack. I mean, do you think it's a bit harsh for fans calling out Potter for those subs?
Yeah, no, you've got a point, and you can see it that way, right? But I think when you make those subs when the team is grounded, you're playing that style of football every week in, week out. You're winning these types of games, and you think, right, 2-1, let's shore it up. Bring in these defensive-minded, a few fresh legs, and do that. This is a team that's fragile at the moment, and every time we concede a corner, it's like, oh crap, we're going to concede from this one. We would have liked to have seen a little bit more attacking play. Trying to close the game out at 1-0. We should be 2-0 up. There's a 2-goal cushion, and suddenly it's a different story. We were always that 1-0. That one goal. It was 1-0, then 1-1. It was 2-1, and then we just that one goal in there. We'd like to see a little bit more attack. He's got the firepower up front to do that, and I just felt that he closed up shop a little bit. You could argue, but I just felt he closed up shop a little bit too early. Just sort of reading some of the comments post-match as well. I think there was sort of, disappointed from the Chelsea fans that with all the firepower that we've got, we just can't seem to go ahead in the game. And I know I'm not taking a piss here, but Spurs went 3-1 up. You banker the Spurs are going to win that, right? Chelsea never seemed to get to that stage where you think, right, okay, it's done now. So from a fan's perspective, we can sit back and enjoy the rest of the performance. Until that whistle goes, we're always on edge. We're going to concede. And we did. And we were lucky not to concede against Leicester the week before. So I just think that, he still hasn't settled down. We've still not seen that style coming out from Potter. I was watching his interview on Soccer AM on Saturday. and he's come on there and he was sort of saying things like, at Brighton, I was a competent coach, and now I've come to Chelsea, I'm not competent. And you're kind of thinking, well, hang on a minute, you kind of move roles, right? Yeah, okay, you're still a coach, but I could be coaching, the local youth side. That doesn't make me good enough to coach a Chelsea side, or a side that's sort of up there. So I know he didn't imply that, but he's sort of making these comments out in public where he's sort of saying, well, you thought I was good enough, I'm still good enough. So I don't know if he's buying his own hype a little bit. But anyway, I'm probably a bit of Chelsea fan right now.
Hash G, any questions for the heart of West London?
I want to get VJ's thoughts on this, right? So I'm probably going to say something controversial.
Not for the first time in your life.
I just don't think that Chelsea is a balanced team, right? Well, now I'm looking at it just as a neutral, and even if I look at the substitutions that you've put on there in a game that you're essentially going to be winning, okay, those aren't the players I would have put on as a manager. And this is the thing. He's trying to keep everyone happy, and the good managers don't do that, right? What they do is they have their core set of players, and then they're using the other players to almost rest the ones that are absolutely going to start. So this argument that I don't know what my best team is nonsense, yeah? Because if you don't know what your best team is, you're in the wrong job, my friend. Yeah, because your job as a manager is to know what your best team is, and then put that best team out there to do the job and to win. Now, if you look at the players that kind of came on, those aren't the players that I would expect to even feature. Like half of those players don't get into the Crystal Palace team that have just come on. Okay, so now you have a situation where if you look at the actual team that did play, João Felix's goal was a scuff. Now, I don't care how amazing and a great player he is. I've seen him play for Atletico Madrid since he was a kid, right? He is amazing. However, that was a scuff shot. Kai Havertz is, he could be the Timo Werner of Chelsea, right? He can be amazing and he can be not so great. Pulisic had a really good shot which went in, but it got ruled off. And I think I watched that game, and I still think you've got almost like left-footed right-sided defenders and right-footed left-sided defenders, and it's just like the whole thing just feels really unbalanced. And the most basic thing to do at this stage is to literally go 4-4-2. Sounds really crazy, but actually 4-4-2 is balanced, and you have the players to put that play in. And in terms of Kovacic and Fernandes, go 4-4-2 defensive. Sounds crazy, but look at the quality you've got in the wings. You're not going to play a defensive game. You're just going to have a really solid base to build off. Potter ball just looks like a triangle, which goes with one pass missing. So you keep going square, but there isn't the final killer pass around the edge, and then getting somebody in to finish it off. Even if you had Kane, I think you would struggle to put away some of the chances. It's just the way it's playing about 10 to 15 yards away from where you need to play that ball. So you're playing in front of that D as opposed to 10 yards in and making it really difficult for the other teams. So from my perspective, I think the team is unbalanced. I think Potter's out of his depth. And in terms of does he buy his own hype? Absolutely. If you look at what he used to wear at Brighton and what he wears at Chelsea, yeah, he's bought his own hype. But the issue isn't that. Brighton is still sailing without him. That tells you a lot about who was, doing what at Brighton. So, yeah, I think Potter's time's up, personally. And I think next season, if he starts with 4 or 5 games losing, he's gone anyway. So why not give somebody a full pre-season and a summer transfer window to do the business?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point I'd be making. I think a lot of people are, well, give him pre-season, let's see what he does. But I think you've got to earn the pre-season, haven't you, a little bit as well? You've got to earn that faith. And I'm kind of looking, if I was the owner, thinking, what has he done? Okay, appreciate that we're sitting well on the outside. What has he done to earn that? As a fan, I can't see it. I could see someone. I can't remember who said it on Soccer Saturday, just gone. They were sort of saying, when you're building a team, you can't just say, well, I'm going to lose all the games while I build. You've got to be winning games as well. They may not be pleasant games. They may not be the ultimate destination, that you want to get to, but you've still got to be winning games.
Especially Everton and Southampton at home.
Exactly. And that's my point. And he's not winning games, and that's the point.
He hasn't got a leg to stand on, has he, Hash? Or has he?
I said from the start he should go. He's not a good manager for Chelsea. You need someone. A quick question, Vijay. Would you take Conte back?
All day, I reckon. Over Potter.
I think we've gone through so many managers. I think we have to now, don't we? You know what I mean? We've literally had all the. Easy answer to that is, as a personal, yeah, I would.
Would you manage those players? The ones you have.
But this is what I've said before, isn't it? As well, I think you've got to have the manager stature as well to manage all of these players, right? These are top talents. Some of them still developing, some of them already there. And they come in and they look at Potter and you think, oh, all right, mate, yeah, you're going to tell us how to do it, is it? Whereas if you've got someone who's been there, done that, like a Conte, use that as an example, you kind of think, right, this guy's done it. This guy's done it wherever he goes. Okay, Spurs, scrub Spurs out, right? But he's done it wherever he goes. And you kind of respect that. And you think, this guy's going to get me to places where I want to be. He's going to develop me. He's going to put silverware on my CV. And I think you can get behind that. I'm thinking like the Mudricks of this world that have come in. They're probably thinking, Potter, well, I know Chelsea. He'll probably be gone next month.
Do you know what, VJ? Actually, what that shows is Mourinho came into Chelsea. No one really knew him. We knew about the Portuguese league, but no one knew him from a global football stage. He hadn't done it anywhere really, had he? He'd done it in Portugal, and he came in with that gravitas, with the balls, with the cojones. He came in and he went, "I'm the special one. I'm going to sort this out," and he had everyone's attention. Do you think Potter's personality is what is letting him down? Because a lot of people say he's bland. He's like monotone in the way he speaks. I mean, do you just think the charisma bit can get you through this period if the players like who you are as a person and they like the kind of ambience, the environment you've set, even though you're a newbie, in terms of managing an elite club? And I just wonder if Potter's just bland. I mean, I wonder if his personality, the media seem to be having a crack at him on his personality. I wonder if the players look at him and think he's just a bit fish and chips and there's nothing else to him. I mean, do you think that is a problem there? Is there rumors coming out of Chelsea that they just see him as a bit bland?
Do you know what it is? Football, yeah. Well, I think football fans are fickle, right? He wins 10 on the bounce. Nobody gives a crap about that, right? When you're losing, and the way that we're losing right now, there doesn't seem to be any clear direction towards where we're going to go. You're picking the color of his suit. You're picking how long his beard is. You're picking everything, right? That's just the way it goes. And yeah, if you take him as a person, you kind of think you want a bit of flamboyance. Like, Mourinho said, I'm the special one. And then he backed it, right? It wasn't that he just said it, he backed it. And Potter's just not doing that at the moment. There's no problem with him being the calm one, right? Taking it easy. The players, they seem to like him. He seems to be a likable dude. And there's probably no doubt about that. He's a nice guy. But that doesn't translate to results on the pitch. And that's what we want.
You know, as fans, that's what we want. Is he too nice?
Yeah.
Not nasty enough?
Yeah. I mean, he says things like, what do you think? You sort of, I'm sitting there not getting annoyed. Well, you probably are. You probably are. But I'm not saying he's got his own personality, and that's totally fine. But like I said, the reality is he's employed to deliver results with this squad at Chelsea Football Club. It's his job to coach the players, pick the best side, like G says, know your best 11 that you can put out every week, and then know what subs you're going to bring on. I think he's trying to keep everybody happy. Maybe that's not entirely his fault. But at the end of the day, he could be out of Chelsea, and people are going to say, he was back. He had all the money in the world. He's just a shit manager.
Before we finish on Chelsea, we'll take one or two last questions from the rest of the guys. What's going through Todd Bowley's mind now? What do you think he's going to do with Potter?
Oh, okay. I mean, I'll answer that one. Weirdly enough, I think he'll keep until the end of the season. But as Todd Bowley, I think he's probably got a couple lined up in case he doesn't turn it around. I mean, he's a shrewd guy, he's a sharp businessman. He's got to have somebody lined up. So if he pulls the trigger, he brings the next guy in straight away. That's what's happening. But
he's gone. He's gone.
You think he's gone?
Yeah, that Real Madrid. If let's say you play good, you lose, fine. But if you get thrashed, in both legs, like Liverpool, then he's gonna have to go. His basically season defines on Champions League now. These are the big games. If he can turn it around, get a result at Stamford Bridge, if he gets out, then it's looking good for him. I think. Otherwise, it's all Champions League. If he goes at the Bernabeu and gets smashed out 4-5-0, then he has to go. Can't just stay there.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I don't know if Todd Bowley's looking at it and think, well, we're in the Champions League, we can win that. I mean, look, I don't know if you boys saw the draw. I mean, you must know the draw. I mean, it couldn't be any harder, could it, really, at the end of the day? I mean, even if we somehow miraculously get past Real Madrid. And I know a lot of Chelsea fans are saying, well, we seem to do well with the Champions League, especially when we have new managers and interim managers. Yeah, okay, that is true. But, even then, you've got to look at the fixtures. If we miraculously get past Real Madrid, we've got Bayern and City to face next. They're the favourites. And if we get past them, you're probably going to end up getting Napoli, and they're absolutely flying in Syria at the moment. So, yeah.
You bring Tuchel back, you'll get you that Champions League, mate.
Maybe so, mate. I'll take him back as well.
Right,
VJ, can I just add
one?
I was just going to add one thing. I think Potter's done for, and the simple reason is he was done for last week, right, or the week before when they had a bad result, and he had that chat with Todd Bowley. You and I have both been in jobs, yeah, where we've had that chat, and we know sooner or later we're starting to look elsewhere, or we're looking at a different department within the same organization, whatever the heck it is. That chat's already been had. I think I'm with Hash on this as well. I think he's a goner. It's just a matter of who comes in. And I think that's what they're not sure of. And remember, Todd Bowley's a VC guy. Yeah, VCs are very simple people. They'll turn around and say, this is a results-driven business. If I give you nearly £700 million worth of players, yeah, you go win a game. That's it. Like, it's not that difficult, my friend. That is your job. If you either do it or you don't. If you can't do it, that's fine. You get your payoff. Good night. And, well done. And I'm sure you'll pick up a job with Crystal Palace, or no disrespect to them, Burnley, whatever, when company moves on again. I guess this is the thing. He could do lasting damage. And Potter was being touted for the England role not that long ago, right? So from my perspective, he's very similar to Gareth Southgate. But then I look at what happened with him at Middlesbrough. So it could be that Potter has to take a bit of a hiatus, come back, prove himself somewhere else for a number of years before he gets another role like Chelsea, because he's not going to quit. Like, you're not going to quit if you're the Real Madrid manager, but Real Madrid could humble Chelsea. They could really humble Chelsea, especially like when they get going in the second half. That Camavinga, Benzema, that team could destroy
It's going to be a field.
Vinicius.
Yeah. Vinicius, yeah, he's the danger man, isn't he? Yeah, agreed.
Just one point, guys. I think as to what the panel have said there about Potter out, he's out of his depth. You look at David Moyes, he went to United G and he looked out of depth at United. You look at Eddie Howe at Newcastle. If Eddie Howe was given the Chelsea job, would he suffer? Would he suffer? These are elite clubs, and no disrespect to Newcastle, they're not an elite club yet. So this is a different level. The expectation is different. The egos are bigger. The complications are much more than just managing young players. I think the only outlier is Arteta, the one who's not done it, and he's doing it for the first time. I think he's the outlier. He's the one people will compare to Potter and Eddie Howe and these younger managers, saying it can be done. But I think Arteta's also had 2 seasons, about 450 mil, and he's had the backing of the board. And that takes a lot of patience, and that means coming out of the top 4. That means dipping into Europa League. And Chelsea might choose to go that path with Potter and dip out of the elite competition and say, listen, we're going to take a step back, but 2 forward with Potter. We'll wait and see what Todd Bowley decides. But I do agree with you, G. I think at that level, big investment, big numbers, you've got to get it right. You can't be throwing 500 million behind a manager that can't beat, Everton at home with 10 minutes to go, can't beat Southampton at home. And you're right, Real Madrid might make a mockery of Chelsea, and that could be the final knife in Potter's back. And Chelsea fans probably want that as well, because you can't see yourself, don't get me wrong, no one wants to lose the Champions League games. But if you do lose and it gets rid of Potter, it might be that at least Chelsea can then go back to the drawing board and say, right, let's get in a proper manager who's got the CV, who can dictate and command this respect of these players, as to VJ's point. So we'll see what happens with that. But thank you very much, chaps, on the Chelsea segment. We'll now move on to Manchester United, the team that keeps winning football matches in cup competitions. You're definitely out of a title race, G, since we last spoke, and that's that debate's gone now.
That's
Thank God,
gone.
because that cloud was
Don't
hanging
worry,
over us.
they managed to went and lose to Bournemouth, didn't they? So that's right.
Yeah, exactly. So you never know. You never know. It's still 30 points per foot. Man United are not in a title race by any means at the moment. It's a two-horse race at the top. But let's start with you, G, and then we'll move to Hash and VJ. Were you worried? Did today show frailties in that United performance up to about the 60th minute? Are United fans watching that going, what the hell's going on, man? I mean, obviously you got the humiliation of Anfield out your system, hopefully by now, but some of that was still lingering in that first half today.
Yeah, I think so. I think people forget how good Fulham are, right? And Fulham played an incredible game, and for the most part of that game, I thought they were the better team, certainly in the first half, right? And Mitrovic was causing us absolute havoc. I mean, he should go to Chelsea. He'd probably score 30 goals. The guy was absolutely unplayable at one point. The save from De Gea. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch that. You should just have that as like a slow motion screensaver. It was outstanding save. But again, it's just one of those ones where I went, Harry Maguire, and I keep saying this, he is never ever going to want to be playing in, you know, a Premier League game like that, because he got a yellow card really early, and then he was still making fouls which could have got him sent off, right? And this is the bit I don't understand. You're supposed to be captain of Man United, right? Like, you do not do these things. If you're just a big bulky guy, stand in your defense and keep those 10 yards either side of you. You know you can make it back. No one's asking you to play on the halfway line and then trying to, run back. I think we missed the balance. I thought Scott McTominay playing in the defensive mid today was interesting. Again, he's a little bit, for me, he hasn't really come on, and he hasn't really got to that level. We talk about managers here with Eddie Howe and Graham Potter, but there are certain players as well that haven't made that sort of jump up. I thought Sancho was quiet. I said it to Sultan today. I said, look, 350k a week, 80 million, you know, now you look at it, it doesn't look that great a buy. And he hasn't performed. Rashford was kept quiet by the Fulham back line for long periods of time. Weghorst, I think he was pulled apart at half time by the Sky pundits, saying he was the only one pressing. Nobody else was going with him. He was going at the wrong time. And he was using the wrong foot to go, and there was just stuff like that. We looked really disjointed. Saying that, we did win, right? But it was just a bit of madness that from Fulham. And before we came onto the show, I was saying the worst thing that would have happened in that scenario where Sancho shot is that Willian would have just let that ball go in. They were 1-1, they would have the full complement of players on the pitch, and they still had the momentum to come and hurt us. But once they started losing their head, I think it was only United.
Losing their players as well, mate.
Yeah, they're losing players. Polina was outstanding again. I mean, I'd love to see him at United just to shore up that midfield. Casemiro likes his 8 to 10 games off a season. As Sultan says, he's got some shopping to do in Vegas or something. But 2 red cards this season. I think we are sort of stuttering into sort of Champions League positions this season. But I genuinely think we lack that fluidity. We don't seem like, knife through butter like Arsenal play. And I think we've got to have a little bit about us. And how many games is Fernandes going to play? Jesus, that boy needs some rest. Yeah, I mean, he's still smashing goals in the 90th minute, right? Scored the penalty as well. Don't know why Rashford didn't take that. But again, I think that was all because everything kicked off around him. But this is a Ten Hag team that knows how to grind out results. I'd be fearful. I think it's going to be a hell of a final if Man City, Man United get there, and we've got to get through our next game. We've got to beat Sevilla as well now in Europe, and we've got to win the games in the Premier League. The pressure's back on, but in a good way. I still think that we are in a false position, and this is where I also think sometimes I also think people like Newcastle are in a false position because they don't really have strikers that are finishing off the stuff. We have everything, but it's still not quite gelling. Because when I look at your front line as well, Josh, and when we talk about it, Richarlison, Kane, Son, you'd be expecting the goals to rain, and with Rashford, Sancho, Anthony, we're also expecting the goals to rain, but they're not. So something's not quite clicking. But overall, we're happy with the result.
On that point, you stop Rashford. You said this a few weeks. Stop Rashford. Stop United. You stop Casemiro from playing. He's no longer there for a few games now. 3 games to go. We'll have a look at your fixtures in a minute. And you kind of stop Bruno, and that's United done, right? There isn't that much left to United after you stop those 3 players. One of them wasn't even playing, like I say today. I felt like if Fulham did a better job on Bruno, then they kind of shut up shop and get the result or take it to pens.
Yeah. But also, like the commentator, I don't know who the hell the commentator was on today's game, but he said, "Oh, when the guy got a yellow card, the Fulham, right back when he took out Anthony, and he goes, oh, with his pace." And I was thinking, seriously, what games are you watching? Because, like, when I'm watching him, Anthony's got no pace. He's not going to beat you on the outside. Show him in, And it was just one of those where, again, he could have got sent off. He actually kicked out at the player, right after it had gone past the line. So there were situations in that game where I went, we were lucky, but we're not always going to be that lucky. But you need that luck to win cups. So
Talking of luck, Hash, have Man United finally run out of luck? Do you think, or do you think that they will get that top 4 and having a right season?
They'll have an alright season because it's Ten Hag's first season as well in charge. They got a trophy, but that's an Energy Cup. So, but if they win the FA Cup and Europa League, then it's a fantastic season. Absolutely, very fantastic. But yeah, I think they should go all out for those trophies they're in. But I think they'll get top 4 easily. But I think they may, and plus, even though they get top 4, they still got Europa League to fight for as well. So it's looking good for them at the moment.
Hash, the problem is if they don't do well in both, they could end up 5th and win nothing. That's a reality. That could actually happen. Do they start focusing cups over top 4? Because at what point do you now say, we're in the Europa League, we win that, we get the Champions League, forget the Premier League for a minute, let's just go and win that big trophy and get in the Champions League, which Arsenal obviously don't have that problem now. They can focus on the league. Because I would argue that Manchester United will get found out trying to prioritize both of them, because I'm not sure Man United have the squad to challenge on both fronts. Or maybe they do have the squad, but I'm not sure they have the players hitting form at the right time. There's only 2 or 3 players there that are smashing it week in, week out. That's Bruno, Rashford, and Casemiro.
and De Gea,
Anthony's yet to turn up.
and De Gea.
And De Gea, absolutely. He pulled out a worldie today. Is there a risk that they will almost try and juggle both, and you think end up nowhere? Do you think they need to prioritize? I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you've got to give the Europa League
It is a
respect.
difficult one, but at the same time, the teams that are below them, they're dropping points like yourselves. Tottenham, Newcastle, just got that late grabber as well. But you can't rely on those teams as well. So, but I
Play them
think
next.
they should go the cup competition. They should go all out, and the league is just start the best squad you can and go for it. But there's teams around them that can drop points like Tottenham, Newcastle, Liverpool as well. They're looking like they might drop points. So I think they're on the driver's seat right now. So it's okay.
Yeah. VJ, your thoughts, mate, on United now in this crossroads they're at with competition, top 4 race. How do you look at it, mate?
Yeah, I'm sort of comparing it to Chelsea, right? Ten Hag's come in, he's brought in a few players, and there's a difference, right? They're going through a bit of a transition, they're going through a bit of a rebuilding, but they're winning games. Okay, I think they got lucky today. But they're winning games, and you can see progression. You can see things are happening, and you're 6, 12 months down the line, they're going to be better than where they are right now. Whereas you don't get that with Chelsea. You just think, are they getting worse? Are they getting better? You just don't know week on week, week on week. But yeah, I think United will get top 4 quite comfortably, because I think your Liverpool's are stuttering, Tottenham's are stuttering, Chelsea are nowhere near, and there's 2 spots up for grabs, right? Still, so I think United will get it.
Yeah.
I think the fixture looks like really interesting, right? So I'm looking at this fixture list, and this is a really critical time for United because Newcastle wants revenge for the cup, so we know that game comes around quickly. Brentford, we want revenge, so but that could go one of 2 ways. Brentford is still a really good team; they can give us a hell of a game. Sevilla is actually one of our bogey teams in Europe. We really struggle to beat Sevilla. So that's going to come, and that's going to come really quickly. When you look at the gaps between those games, there's not a lot of recovery time. Certainly not between Newcastle and then you kind of go again at Brentford, and then you go again at Everton. And these are tough, physically tough games. So I'm yeah, I'm not as confident that we're going to be able to clear up on the cup front or anything else. Remember, Man City still, have a say in all of this. So there's that, but we're in it. We're going to keep going, and I think people need a rest. When can we start resting them? Is when the other players hit form. Today, I don't know if anybody saw Sancho. I mean, genuinely, I did not see him. I did not see him take on a dribble. I did not see him, take on the shot, apart from the one that Willian kind of hit into his arm. But this is the thing: you can't be at that sort of level, commanding those sort of wages, and not turn up every day, wanting to be an absolute world beater. Because if you look at Trossard compared to a Sancho in terms of value acquisition, how many assists has Sancho provided in the last 3 games compared to Trossard? So there are these sort of stats that will keep on going. But I think Ten Hag's doing a good job.
Yeah, question for you. What's a successful season? I mean, you've got a cup in the bag, right? I know whatever you want to call it, you call it, but it's still a cup. What's successful? Is winning the Europa League successful, or making the top 4, or both?
I think if we come third, win the Europa League, I think it's been an incredibly successful season. I think the FA Cup might even be a stretch too far, but it's a cup game and it could be anything basically. So yeah, I think because by winning the Europa Cup we get a Champions League regardless, right? So it's more the fact that are we the third best team in the country? And I think sometimes we are, and sometimes we're really not. And that's to me is because Arsenal and Man City are so far ahead in terms of how how much that distance is, and that's the bit that we need to just make sure that we're closing. Because I can tell you now that I don't think Arsenal are going to be in this sort of position come next season, because I think everybody else will invest around them, and they'll be better as well for it. So this will be the season that they'll go on to win it. I hope for Hash that they do. But for United, there is still a lot of rebuilding and a lot of work to be done. I mean, someone said to me 50 million for Maguire to go to PSG or something. I'd be like, I'd drive him now. So it depends. I'm not just having a shot at Maguire. I think there are players that have shirked it, and they've had bad games across the board. It's not just him. But then I also don't understand some of the acquisitions. Like we had Elanga and he was playing well. We've got Pelisteri, he's playing well, right? These are kids who come on and they do a good job. If Anthony's not doing a good job or Sancho's not doing a good job, they don't play. Play on form, and those are the teams that go on to win, not the names. And that's where I'm at, a little bit like going, oh, are we just playing them because Anthony's been good in Europe, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't really set fire in the Premier League, not by any means.
Gee, what blame do you put on Ten Hag? We all hands up had a great season so far, right? As per VJ's point, you've got a trophy in the bag, you're in a top 3 race, you're in the Europa League, things are looking good for United compared to 12 months ago. But in today's performance, you rode your luck, like you said. Admittedly, you rode your luck. Fulham just exploded and collapsed, and then United took the win, right? Obviously, they got the men sent off. What did Ten Hag get wrong today? Because we give credit when credit's due, but we also have to criticize where it's due as well. So where would you criticize Ten Hag today in team selection, subs, tactics? I mean, what do you think he got wrong, mate?
I think he got the team selection wrong. I also think he got the tactics wrong. So from the perspective of starting Weghorst, I wouldn't have, and Weghorst has started so many games recently, and this wasn't a pressing game per se, right? These guys were going to play through the lines. They've got real quality in Pereira. They've got some fantastic, individuals who are going to run you around the sides. They midfield dominated us with Polinia, and we weren't moving any of their midfield around. So I would have gone 3 in midfield, and tried to have some sort of creativity in there, and try to play that with Rashford up front, and then have a couple of explosive wingers. And this is the thing. I think we missed Garnacho today because he would have given us that sort of cutting edge, if you like. And that's where he's got it wrong. But he's trying to give people game time, and we've missed Ericsson as well. We missed his guile, because against these sort of teams, we need players like that. So there is some recruitment pieces to be done. What did he get wrong? We could look at it and say, look, he got this wrong and that wrong. But I also think the players have got to, look up and actually pass the ball to each other. Sometimes the manager is, shaking his head at the sidelines. The amount of times I saw Ten Hag shaking his head today was ridiculous. It was like a bit like a noddy. He just kept on doing this, and it was because they weren't looking up to pass the ball. And when you've got people like Rashford in the form that he's in, you've got to look for him. Like, you don't take on silly shots. You've got to try and find your informed players. That's what Man City are doing really well. And that's what United need to understand, that Fernandes and Rashford are the players that are going to win you the games. Get him the ball. Fergie said it. If you want to win the games, pass the ball to Ruud van Nistelrooy and he will score. Pass it to Van Persie and he will score. Your job is to give him the ball to score. I think this is where people are trying to do everything themselves. And they're taking on shots and taking on role profiles that they really shouldn't.
Yep. Unless anyone's got any other further points, we'll close off on Man United. Just mindful of time, lads. We'll skip Liverpool for this week's show because they didn't play this weekend, so we don't need to talk about Liverpool this week's show. But let's quickly now go with the team of the week, or the team of the weekend, I should say. So this is the part where we choose 11 players in every position, and you guys can debate amongst yourselves who you think should start in this team. So we'll start with the goalkeeper. I'm about to bring up the team in a minute. Which goalkeeper do you think this weekend takes the award for best goalkeeper of the weekend? So let's just go through the nominees. Any nominees there? Anyone want to throw some names in there? Is Ramsdale
De Gea gets in.
Yeah,
De Gea gets in.
Man United boys.
De Gea?
Yeah, that was a great save. But again, I don't know if that's Premier League, right? Because that's FA Cup. But he's played well.
Let's go with De Gea. I think that's probably a good shout. Just quickly, Fraser Foster did make a couple of good saves, and he kept us in the game against Southampton for the Tottenham game. So he would be in there as a nominee. Maybe Ramsdale, but I don't think he had much work to do, did he? Hash. And from the Chelsea point of view, Kepa, I think, was a bit to blame for that second one. Maybe VJ, I don't know, could have got a hand.
Yeah, If we're doing the worst team of the week, he goes in there for sure. But no,
it's a good point, mate. We should think about that. Worst team of the week.
That could be next week.
we'll do that when everyone loses. Yeah, we'll do that when everyone loses. Right. Centre backs. Any nominations? What we put? Maguire G for that one, yeah?
No, but do you know what? I think if I was to look at it, I'd say, I don't know if Ben White played centre back. He played right back, didn't he?
Right back.
But I think, to be fair, I think the Arsenal centre backs played pretty well. So you can't.
I think we have to give Holding credit, right, for coming in and doing a job.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So let's put Rob Holding in there because, to be fair,
he's never made a team of the week before this, so this is
and I don't think he ever will, because if Sadiq is back, then he probably will never get a chance. Yeah, let's put him in there. I think, I mean, not many teams. We didn't have Liverpool play. We didn't have Man City and Man U playing the thing. But on Man City, they did win 6-0 to Burnley at home. So you could argue.
What did they have? That Laporte, Diaz, did they?
Yeah, Laporte,
Laporte and Diaz.
It's Stones back. No, Kyle Walker. Yeah, Kyle Walker played.
Yeah, I mean, right back, Porro and Ben White, I think, go in there. Porro scored the goal, and we'll put Ben White in there for his assist. But in terms of centre backs, lads, anyone else that I think we got to put Diaz in, haven't we? 6-0 is 6-0. You know, I mean, I know. Haaland did pretty much all the damage there. Left back, lads. So Perisic scored a goal. He's a left wing back, but in terms of defense and attack, he was pretty decent. He did score a goal.
He came on quite late, though, didn't he?
He came on when Ben Davies got injured. That's right. He came on and he had a really good cross at the end into Longley, and he should have scored that and made it 4-3. And that would have been the ultimate Spurs finish there, because we love a last-minute goal this season. So he did put in some good crosses. He did score a goal. He did score a goal, his first goal for Tottenham. So he's a shout. Anyone else? Any other left backs?
Zinchenko.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll put Perry in there to save space.
Come
And
maybe
Get him in there.
Fernandes.
Get him in there.
I put Perry and Zinchenko. Oh, I've got to put him in there, man.
You
Tottenham.
need for the pundits decide that.
Yeah. That's the host's. That's the
That's
host's
his
favourite
veto.
player.
That's his veto
Yeah.
done.
That's
Spend it on Perry.
administration rights. Right. Who are we putting in the middle, lads? I mean, Partey.
Yeah, he has to get in there.
Yeah, party, and I think Fernandes as well. I think even though it was a 2-2 game,
Yeah.
I thought Enzo played really well, and Bruno
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah,
But
the
Bruno
other
plays much
two
further up, I think. But
Right, I'm putting all three of them in. We've got space. Let's do it. So Partey, Bruno, Enzo. That's great. On the left,
Thank you. Put them all in.
yeah, put them all in. Why not? Any left-sided midfielders? So
Martinelli, but I don't know if he plays up
well,
there
we'll
or
plays
up
up
further.
there.
put him up top.
Plays
Yeah.
9, isn't he?
Yeah.
Xhaka scored a goal, did he?
We could put De Bruyne and then De Bruyne and let's say Odegaard.
On the left
Odegaard,
side,
yeah.
though. On the left.
Oh,
Odegaard was right, wasn't he? Played on the right.
yeah, we could put
Xhaka scored on the left, didn't he?
Yeah, should we put De Bruyne on that side? Yeah, he just scored on left. Yeah.
KDB, yeah. Xhaka's on the left. KDB and Xhaka. On the right, lads, we've got
Odegaard.
Odegaard, I think.
Odegaard, and
So, yeah.
Kulusevski.
This is like the Arsenal team, isn't it?
It is
Arsenal,
the
Man
Arsenal
City
team.
combined team.
I think
What happens?
in Ricky's absence, James Ward-Prowse.
Yeah,
James
Yeah.
Ward-Prowse.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
dictating.
definitely.
He was
He's been
dictating.
playing brilliant for the last couple of games, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah,
brilliant.
he's one of those players. I'm surprised no one's gone in for him, but I think he's got a bit of a contract there. Right. I heard someone say something. I think it was Martinelli.
Martinelli. Yeah, I can't even say Rashford today.
No, Martinelli, plain simple.
Yeah, it's got to be Martinelli. Rashford does not make the team of the week this week. Left-sided, Havertz was on the right. On the left, Felix, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah,
right
Felix
there.
played on the right, I think, but yeah.
He played on the left or the right? He played on the left.
Yeah,
didn't he?
Pulisic was on the left.
On the
Pulisic
left,
was on
yeah.
the left, but
Okay.
yeah, he had a right game. I wouldn't put him in there.
Yeah, up top, it's only one man that I can think of at the moment.
Haaland.
Haaland. Kane,
okay.
Kane got a goal, and who else? Kane, I wouldn't say really.
Then Trossard got an assist.
Trossard got an assist, didn't he? Okay.
Got an assist. Oh, sorry, team of the
I'm
week,
not
got
sure
an
it's
assist.
discounts, Hash, man. That's too much Arsenal in there.
No, we'll go with Haaland. I mean, they
I think Haaland
Haaland
deserves
was
his own
good,
spot.
But there's only one person you could put. This is just Saka.
Saka.
Saka, yeah.
To be fair, you could also put Foden. Foden had a great game in the midweek.
Foden plays on the right.
He did play in the right. Yeah.
Oh, you
Foden,
right.
yeah. He switches.
But man of the match, Saka. You know.
All right, brilliant, lads.
That's my FPL team. This week. Brilliant. Yeah.
If only...
Any of these you want to buy, VJ? Well, in the next transfer window.
Take a lot.
I think Potter will destroy him, man. I think Potter destroy all these.
Yeah, give it to them and they'll stop being international players.
That's it.
Exactly.
They'll be losing at home to Southampton and drawing at Everton. But that is our team of the week. De Gea in goal, Holding and Diaz holding it up at the back. Perry and Zinchenko, Perisic, that is, and Zinchenko down the left, bombing on, creating and assisting. Porro and White on the right. Sounds like a duo, doesn't it? Like a boy band, that. Porro and White. On the right there, you've got Odegaard, James Ward-Prowse. What a player! Should have gone to the World Cup. Partey in the middle, smashing it. Bruno doing what Bruno does best, scoring goals from midfield, and Enzo really smashing it for Chelsea now. He's become that main guy in the middle. Definitely worth every penny from his recent performances. Xhaka continues to contribute to the Arsenal goals, and he's turned around this season. Xhaka, he's gone on to prove his critics wrong that he is a good player. He just needed better players around him. KDB, speaks for himself. Martinelli, what a comeback from that little purple patch. Felix settling in nicely. I think that's 3 goals, is it, VJ now? Yeah, 3 goals, is it, in a Chelsea shirt? Not bad. So the money's paying off for Chelsea with Enzo and Felix. Haaland, absolute freak of nature, unstoppable, and really just taking the piss out of defenses week in, week out. I feel sorry for whoever plays Man City next. It's Newcastle at home, so watch out, Dan Burn and Botman. And on the right there, Saka, probably the youngest, the best English young talent in the country, the best young player in the country, and probably the best right-sided player in the country as well. You'd have to argue.
Probably
with
the world.
Probably in the world. Yeah. We do have to do a world 11 for that. Vinicius Jr. on the left, but on the right there, you've got Foden in there, who just keeps developing and yeah, man, what a player Foden, Saka. England has some good players to look forward to in those winger positions, left and right winger attacking positions. But that's our team of the week, lads. We'll screenshot that and put that on Twitter and Insta and all the other places for everyone to see. But we are going to call it a day, lads. We are going to call it a day because it's now 10:46, and I promised you guys it would finish at 10:15.
Exactly.
And I'm half an hour late, but in comparison to all my recent performances,
Like
I'm doing
midnight.
well. I'm doing well. Yeah, exactly. The arrow's going up. So you'll all get an hour's extra sleep tonight. The clocks do go forward this week as well, lads. So you get an extra hour in the evening as well. But just want to say thank you all for coming on this show again, episode 9. We will look forward to inviting you back on episode 10. We have some good fixtures in the week to look forward to. We've got a double game week in the fantasy football. So if you've got that free pass to play all your players without taking any points hits, this is the time to play. Don't be silly and use that free pass. I know a mate of mine used his free pass on this weekend and he got like 31 points because he hadn't obviously looked ahead. Yeah, use your free pass in Fantasy League. Leave us a comment, leave us a like, leave us a share and a subscribe, and we'll see you on episode 10. Signing out. Peace, love, and respect to all of you guys, man. See you on episode 10, and have a good night and a good week. See you later, chaps.
There you guys.
Lads.
See you
Take care,
later.
everyone. Have a good one.
See you later.